Bases dropped on a new edition of Soccer Down here. It's a Monday. It's an overreaction Monday. Atlanta United lost late to Toronto in Hartford, Connecticut last night. We'll get into all your thoughts on that, all your reactions, over, under, on par, whatever other type of descriptor you want to use. We'll take them. Tweet at us at Soccer Down Here. Email us, soccerdownhere@gmail. Twitch.tv/Soccer Down Here. That's the Twitch pitch. Join the chat room. You can argue, you can commiserate, you can throw shade, you can yell at us, whatever you want to do in the Twitch pitch, it is open for you today. So, I know we've already got a decent bit of reactions from last night. It's a gut punch of a loss because it felt like going in, if you were told it'd be a 1-0 win for Toronto, you wouldn't be surprised. You watch the way the first half played out, and you're like, well, wait a minute, there might be a little more on the table here. Beginning of the second half, you definitely felt like there was more on the table. As the night went on, okay, you didn't really look at Toronto as being a threat to score as the second half went on. You didn't know if you were going to find one, but it looked like it could be a scoreless draw and a valuable point, and then you get smacked in the face. Because that's what happens in this game sometimes, and it's incredibly frustrating, and Atlanta couldn't see it out. They give up the goal. It's a beautiful header from Pablo Piatti, perfectly placed, perfectly weighted. And Atlanta is now, not really in a different spot to me in the playoff race, and this was the conversation that Mike and I had on the full-time report. I don't think anything really changed except for the way you feel about it, because Atlanta was not expected to win or draw in this match. That was not the expectation coming in. Immediately afterwards, because you could see at least a point on the table and maybe 3, it feels differently. The thing that's probably changed Atlanta's position more than anything going forward is Chicago's point on Saturday, because that makes it not a requirement, because we don't know how all these games are going to play out, but more of a necessity that Atlanta needed to get something out of one of the 3 road games. Now you only have 2 left. You had something, you couldn't sustain it, and you're in the position you're in. Your home games aren't as much of a guarantee as maybe they looked at before either, because DC has now gotten up off the floor and gotten a couple of results. Cincinnati had gotten a couple of results before they lose to DC. So those games are not going to be gimmies. Your games in Orlando and in Columbus won't be easy because they're 2 of the top teams in the East. That's where you are in 2020. It's not a fun place to be, but that's the reality after Atlanta can't get a point in Toronto last night when you were just a couple minutes away from it.
Yeah, gut punch is probably one of the best descriptions that I could come up with. You think that everything is going to be there, everything's lining up for that point, and then in the 89th you get the great header from Piatti to go into the back of the net. I know that when I was looking at the lineups and I saw Gallagher and Simon, I literally looked at that and I'm like, that's the side you attack all night long. And you saw early on with Jurgen Damm putting Gallagher on his heels that was something that was looked at. And I was, you got a couple of close calls there with Jurgen Damm down that side. Loved what I saw from Mo Adams again last night as he continues to impress. Emerson Hyndman, there was the one ball over the top, but he was absolutely gassed and, playing every minute since basically 1987. Got him 45 and then he was pulled. You saw the relationships with Eric Rometti last night offensively. He was jumping into the play. Moreno comes in, gives you 45. Barco comes in, gives you 45. I love the energy that we saw in those relationships at the beginning of the second half. So, and Cubo Torres, I don't know what he's got to do, but I can't wait for that first one to go into the back of the net for him, because you think that once that door opens that there's going to be a lot more going into the back of the net from there. But once again, the back line for me was solid. It's good to see Fernando Meza back there give you 90 minutes. A little worried about Anton Walks, but obviously with the week off, we'll see how he is with his knock that he got. But, gut punch is the best way I can describe that.
Let's get into the tweets. Starting from pretty soon after the match last night. What do people have to say?
Uncertain Times at Who Took My Thrash said, good effort tonight, tough loss. Disciplinary committee has a Toronto embellishment and a Larea confrontation COVID violation to dole out this week. Holding my breath.
They won't. The embellishment, I think, is on Piatti. I did not think Robinson caught him with an elbow. I think Fotis Bazakos, who, outside of that, was good and consistent. He did a good job. I like that style of refereeing where you let the game breathe, but it's consistent in doing so. He stepped in and started to call things a little tighter when he needed to. I thought Bazakos did a good job. I don't think he made this call initially. I think he got talked into it either from the AR or the fourth, and I think Greg Vanny and Pablo Piatti might have had a little something to do with that. If that's the worst of it, that's the worst of it. You're going to miss some calls. I didn't love that one. The Larea stepping to Barco's face, that's not that big of a deal. If we're doing that, then the disciplinary committee is going to fine everybody. I really do wish they set a little bit more of a true standard, but that one doesn't hit it for me. It's just what it is. Neither one of those affected anything with the outcome. Not surprised to see them go the way they do. That's just kind of how the season has gone. But no, Bazakos I thought was good in general. I was fine with the refereeing last night.
And I had forgotten that the last time that he was center ref was MLS After Dark with Atlanta United.
The last time he was center ref with Atlanta United, yeah.
Right.
He's become a pretty consistent referee in the league this season. I think it's a sign of where Pro kind of sees him going forward in that the crew he was with last night were all FIFA referees. You can tell by the badge that they have. If you're a FIFA referee, you have the FIFA badge. Bazakos just has the Pro badge. He hasn't moved up to the FIFA level yet, but he's working with top people last night. I believe the fourth and the two ARs were all FIFA badges. So he's somebody that they're looking at as maybe can take that next step up. If he has more performances like that, then I'm good with it because he was very good last night outside of the one I disagree with on the Robinson situation, but that might have been bad info.
Joey Logan, this is another good adjective, cruel. And then since I have not seen Ted Lasso this season, Michael Bucklew, we're going to need a little bit more detail here, but he says, if you've seen the Ted Lasso episode where they remove the training room curse, I think we need to do that.
No, there's no curse. So let's stop with the cursing and foolishness because there's no curse in the Braves either or Atlanta Sports or any of the other curses we want to talk about. It's just, look, you're not a great team going forward right now, and your defense can only do so much. I mean, you concede one goal or less on a regular basis. You're expecting to find more points. They're just not there. This was an attack last night that did look better in the second half. It looked pretty good in the first half at times. There's not enough final product. There's not enough numbers forward. And this was something that I said on Southern Fried Soccer with Doug Robertson last night. Jurgen Damm will beat somebody on the wing and then look for an option. And last night's a tough one for John Gallagher. He's not a traditional number 9. But he's trying to find space around Laurent Simon, around Omar Gonzalez. You don't want John Gallagher going up for headers against Omar Gonzalez. He's not winning anything there. So you're trying to find something a little more crafty, and it takes time to develop, and you're not getting those extra runners. You're not getting those extra players forward, so you're putting crosses in, which Atlanta's pretty good at creating the crosses. You're putting them into situations where it's 1 or 2 of your players against 4 or 5 from the opposition. Those aren't good odds. You're not going to win many of those. So then the one that you do, and you pick out Kubo Torres, and it's a great save from Westberg. Torres doesn't put it quite far enough into the corners. It's a good save. It's a really good save. Don't want to take anything away from Westberg there, but that's where Atlanta is. There wasn't anything else because you have Marcelino Moreno and Ezequiel Barco on the field together, and they're like getting to know one another. I mean, that's the thing is you can tell, especially with Moreno, he's trying to develop an understanding of his teammates on the fly. So he can't quite play as fast as he wants to. He looks like he's holding back because he doesn't know where everybody's going to be. He doesn't know tendencies. He doesn't know, does Dom want the ball played in front of him? Does he want it to his feet? What does Barco want? How are you looking to play this? These things all become instinct and they're not there right now for Marcelino Moreno, which is to be expected. Ezequiel Barco, not 100% sharp because we hadn't seen him in a while. He looked pretty good physically. He worked hard. He tracked back hard. He did the things that we're used to seeing from Ezequiel Barco on the work rate side, but he's not 100% sharp. He can't be because he hasn't played in games in a while. So you're trying to figure all that out. The problem is you're pretty much out of time because you look forward here, and you've got a day-to-day, which is going to be more of a regen day, and as Mike explained on the full-time report, days after games, that's a mandatory testing day, so everybody goes into the facility today. Guys who didn't play last night get a training session in. If anybody else needs to do anything with the physical fitness staff, the training staff, that all gets done today. It's a light session. It's not a full session. Probably because of the playing 5 games in 15 days, probably tomorrow's off. That was the idea coming in. And then Wednesday and Thursday are going to be your full training sessions. Friday, day before a game. Saturday, you play. Sunday will be the regen day next week. You're going to have to train fully on Monday. Tuesday's the light day. Then you play again on Wednesday. Then it's regen on Thursday. Then it's light session on Friday. Then it's another game on the Saturday. You've got, in this next run of 3 games, you've got 3 training sessions, like 3 full training sessions. You can get things out of those day before game sessions, but it's not as much from a physical perspective. It's not that relationship building in game situations. It's more set pieces. It's more lighter work. It's not going to be those things that you need. You need that time on the pitch for Moreno, for Barco, for Dom, for Cubo Torres to build the relationships you want. But you're out of time. That's just the way 2020 has gone. So what can you do right now outside of getting your best players on the field for as often as you can and asking them to figure it out on the fly? That's pretty much where Atlanta United is the rest of the way. The defense is good enough. The defense is good enough. I think all the concerns and conversations about this team's not good defensively, throw that away now. That's not the problem. The problem is you're not creating enough going forward. And it's hard to do that without the time to build those relationships. That's what you just have to find out the way to get the most of it.
Jason Heinley with 3 exclamation points says he's so mad at this game. And then Valerie Wilkinson says we just aren't very good.
No, that's the thing that's interesting is I do disagree with that because there are teams who are around you in the table who are bad teams. I don't think Atlanta's a bad team. I think Atlanta's a bad team going forward right now. I will take a team that can defend first over anybody else here because they're going to keep you in games. That defense is going to keep you in games. But you're limited right now. You just are. You're just limited because you're missing your striker, because you've had injuries, because you've been incorporating players, and it has not clicked yet. That's the reality. So at this point, all you can really do, in my opinion, is get your most talented players on the field for as much as you can. And even that's not going to be easy. Because as you saw last night, Emerson Hyndman, really didn't have anything going in the first half because he had played every minute of this stretch of games in 15 days up to that point. He comes off. Jonathan Osorio done the same thing. He couldn't even make it to halftime. Marky Delgado was struggling for Toronto. Alejandro Pozuelo was in quicksand in the second half. Anton Walks was struggling a little bit as the night went on. I mean, it's just, those are all guys who had played over 300 minutes, almost all the minutes in these last games. You add on top of this, you see what you saw around the league yesterday. A lot of weird results, a lot of sloppy play, a lot of games that kind of struggled to get into second or third gear because you're playing a lot of games in a short period of time. It has an effect. Atlanta's fresh legs they brought in the second half did help, but not enough because the relationships aren't there. Guys haven't played together very much, so you're going to have to try to find a way to just work yourself into a position to fight for that playoff spot. It's about what we expected. Burns said things have worked out about where we expected. Maybe the Montreal win over the weekend was the surprise. I didn't expect Chicago to get a point against Kansas City either. Before the game, not as the game was going on. But there's still games to play, teams are going to drop points that are going to be unexpected. Teams are going to pick up points that are going to be unexpected. DC winning last night was unexpected. Who knows? who knows where this goes, but you don't have control of your destiny. All you can do at this point, if you're Atlanta United, is fight and control what you can control. You've got to win your home games. You've got to steal something on the road now. I think the way the weekend worked out, you've got to find a point somewhere. And the hard thing is, we just went through that calendar a little bit from a training perspective. The hard thing is, you're coming up into another 3-game week starting on Saturday. It's a Saturday, it's a Wednesday, it's a Saturday. Do you have enough guys? Can your top players play 270 minutes in those 3 games in a week? I don't know, because we haven't seen Dom, Moreno, Barco, Torres do that. We haven't seen 3 of them do that since they've been here, because they haven't been here the whole season. And we haven't seen Barco do that since the very beginning of the season. So that's what you need. And if you can't get that, then how do you divide up the minutes? How do you find a way to be as good as you can for as long as you can? And that's going to be the challenge for Stephen Glass. What decision do you take? Is it split the difference and try to field as strong of a team across all 270 minutes as you can? Or is it, how can I be my best for a shorter period of time, but in the minutes when I need to be? And then the flip side is, how do you get Jake Mulroney, John Gallagher, Adam John, how do you get that group to give you what you need in the other minutes? Because they're going to be called upon to go get you things, and they're going to have to perform, because they can't, that starting group can't play all 270. There's just no way. So you're going to have to get more out of Jake Mulroney than you did to start last night, in my opinion. You're going to have to get more out of Gallagher and John. It's just going to be a necessity. They're going to have to step up in a big moment. That big moment might be in Orlando. Because if you're ranking the games in terms of likelihood of points, out of those 3, the Orlando game is the least likely. It's on the road. It's against a better team. You've got to secure the 6 points at home. That's non-negotiable. I think you've got to get those. And then, when you compare the road games, Orlando is the more likely to get something. Unless you get into a situation where Columbus has clinched everything and there's nothing to play for and they rest everybody. But there's really no reason for that, because they'll be going into an international break where you're not playing in a couple of days. So they're going to have time to rest. So I don't think you can count on that. I think you have to find a way to get something out of Orlando if you can, because it's more likely to get it there than it is in Columbus. It's not easy, but that's where you are right now, and that's what you have to try to figure out.
Tyrone English says same old, and then Joe McCurdy posts a Ted Lasso gif where Ted is going through a door frame and he taps the believe sign as he's on his way out the door.
It's not same old, first off. It's not. You haven't had games like this very often this season. It's same old in the fact that you didn't create enough chances. But, if that's where the mood is, that's where the mood is. It's not worth fighting it. You haven't had much of this, and I think the feeling that you get out of this hasn't been a familiar one, with giving up a goal late on a play like that. George Bello gets beat in the 1v1. Bello's another one of these guys who's played a lot of minutes over the last couple of weeks. I think he had missed 17 of the 360 coming into this game. I don't know if that had a factor in it. Richie Larea came off the bench. He was fresher. He's running at Bello. He stayed up very high and put pressure on him. Bello might have gotten a touch on that cross. It's a little unclear. I think the spin of the ball changed. And it's a great header from Piatti, but Bello has to win that 1v1. That's what the game came down to, was that moment, and Larea was better in that moment.
Kefsey, great call from you and Mike. Good effort from the team, and especially Adams and Meza. They made us proud. Tough not to get the result. I don't like the disrespect to Jake not to get his call, and I trust Miles knows what he's talking about to Fotis.
Yeah, those are two things. I'll set them up. Miles is the one with the Pablo Piatti elbow, and the Mulroney, I thought he was fouled late in the first half. He took a heavy touch, and that's what the argument would be, that you don't get the call because he wouldn't have got on the ball. I don't think you can guarantee that, because he's splitting defenders, and he might not get to the ball first. He might not get to the ball cleanly, but Michael Bradley's there, and he could foul him inside the 18 and give a penalty. You don't know. And there's definitely contact. I don't think Mulroney was looking for it too hard. It was Gonzalez kind of sloppy, caught him in the thigh, it looked like. That should have been a free kick at the end of the first half, in my opinion. That's the other one that I felt like Bazaco's missed. That's it. Mo Adams played well. Meza came in and played very well after not seeing him for a while. Adams is playing himself into a long-term option here, I think. I don't know if he's going to be a starter long-term with the way this team wants to upgrade some positions, but I do think he is a player that is becoming far more well-rounded than he's gotten credit for.
Yeah.
He's a very good, hard-working player. He's good on the ball. He's got quickness. He did a good job last night in playing the role that it's a little different than Jeff because Mo and Remedi kind of split the difference, and Remedi played well as well. They kind of took turns as to who sat more. It wasn't quite as effective as Jeff because when Jeff's there, you know that the other two can go far more, but it worked. It worked. Mo gave you a good performance. He tried to push forward in the second half and contribute more. I think Adams has changed from that 45 minutes he played against Orlando that was very poor. He's been very, very good, and I think he's changed his spot on the depth chart.
Shiva says, I don't see how 4 games is going to take our... Okay, there's some words that are missing here. I don't see how 4 games is going to have to take our offense going forward. We need to be realistic. I don't see us making the playoffs, and that's extremely disappointing.
Shiva's completely flipped. Shiva, you were very optimistic, and now you're absolutely not optimistic. I get it after a game like that. No, you can't expect the offense to turn into the best in the league in these last 4 games. I don't think that's a reasonable expectation. But are they good enough to get goals against the teams they're playing? They are. They absolutely are. They've got to do it, but they are good enough to do it. It's not going to be pretty. It's not going to be flowing soccer because those relationships aren't there. But can Jurgen Damm win 1v1s that can create opportunities? Yep. Can Moreno? Can Barco? Yep. Kubo Torres, I don't know. I mean, he's had a couple of really good opportunities. He had a couple early on that he missed that were poor. He missed the goal. He's had some that have been saved now. It feels like if they get one, maybe the floodgates open. Maybe that's what we're hoping it would be. But they have the talent. Are they going to be able to put it together quickly enough to lean on that here in these games? I think the biggest thing that is going to decide if Atlanta can play themselves into a playoff spot is how many minutes you can get and how many minutes at top impact can you get out of Dom, out of Moreno, out of Barco. Those are the 3 that can turn a game on their head with their individual talent, and that's what you're going to be relying on right now. I just don't think you're not going to get 360 minutes out of those 4 guys in these last 4 games. You're not. I don't see how that's possible with where they are physically, with where the season has been. But how much can you get, and how much can you get where they're impacting matches? And can they get some extra support? Can that be a Bello coming forward? Can it be a Brooks Lennon coming forward? Is it a Franco Escobar coming forward? Emerson Hindman? Who else can help? Mateo Sosetu came on and was good last night off the bench. Who else can support that group? If it's not Torres, is it Adam John? Is it John Gallagher up top? What is it? What can give those 3 players, those are your 3 attacking game changers right now, what is it that can give them the best chance for success? And you've got to try to figure that out with 2 training sessions this week and 1 in the following week.
Kosk Arch, I think that he's in for the first time on the Twitters, says that effort beats 7 out of 10 teams ahead of Atlanta. This lineup will be hell with Joseph up top. Having a healthy Franco won't hurt either.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I mean, when you get this full group next year, you get Joseph Martinez in, and let's assume you have better luck with injuries, and you're looking at a team with Joseph up top, with Barco on the left wing, with Jurgen Damm on the right, with Marcelino Moreno, let's say Hindman for now as the other central midfielder, a new number 6 who's a starting level top number 6. George Bello, Miles Robinson, and then is it Franco Escobar, Brooks Lennon? Is it Fernando Meza, Franco Escobar? What does that look like? You've got options. That's a really good team. Toronto is so good at these moments because if you look at Toronto's last couple of games, they have not been playing well. They're dead tired. They're away from home. You know, they're grinding games out. They gave up 3 points against the Red Bulls on a late goal to Caden Clark. You know, they're not 100%, but they're fighting through it and getting things out of it because, like last night, it's down to the individuals. It's down to Lorea. It's down to Pablo Piatti. Those are the two who got that result for you. Atlanta's got to get that, and they have the talent to do it. That talent hasn't been 100% really at all this season outside of Barco at the very beginning. That's it. That's got to try to change here, and you've got to have them as close to 100% for as long as you can in the rest of the minutes you play, because if you're going to get anything, it's going to come down to that.
Y'all means all at mad_dog31 says, I've never felt better after a loss. That was one of our better matches since the shutdown.
They played well. I don't know if I'd say it was one of the better matches after the shutdown. I think it was exciting in the second half because of who you got in there, who you got back. You know, Ezequiel Barco coming back is a big lift. I have the conspiracy theories stopped now? Are we still playing that game? Is the black helicopter still flying? I don't know. I think I think looking at it, it was a good match. I'm not quite as high on it as some others are in terms of the quality. And some of that might be because of the way you drop the points at the end, just because it's frustrating. But that's this game. If you can't go find a goal, you're running that risk. Your defense can only do so much when they're not getting enough support going forward. I mean, you look at the last few results for this team. You know, your defense conceded 1 to Toronto, 1 to Miami, 1 to Red Bulls, none to Orlando, none to DC, 2 to Chicago in the first half, none to Dallas. That's pretty good. It's about all you can ask for. And the offense has been 1 against Dallas, 0 against Chicago, 4 against DC when they were in free fall, none against Orlando, none against Red Bulls, 1 against Miami, none against Toronto. You're not going to win many games that way. And now you've got to find 3 points in games. You know, it's not even just the defense throws a clean sheet out there and you're good. You've got to find 3 points in games, and you've got to score goals to find those 3 points.
Jake Michaels says, I honestly don't think this match changes my perspective of the team much. Barco and Moreno can't lift this team into the playoffs with no real goal-scoring threat. We still lack starting caliber talent in key areas and are dismally below the bar the club set for itself in its first 2 years.
Hold on. This is where things turn a little more hyperbolic here, and I don't think it's true. What was the part about the attacking, or is it attacking talent or is it just general talent?
General talent. Still lacks starting caliber talent in key areas.
That's incorrect. Now, you can say that it's been injured and it hasn't been available. That's fine. But again, we just went through what the lineup would look like next year at this point, and we'll put Jeff Lorenowitz in as the 6. Where are you lacking starting level talent with Joseph, Barco, Moreno, Heineman, Dom, Jeff as the 6 for now, but I think that's a position that could get upgraded. Bello, Robinson, Escobar, Lennon, or Robinson, Meza, Escobar / Lennon. There's none of those that you're lacking starting level talent. That's just not true. If you want to go and say that the depth isn't good enough, well, then you can start to look at the depth and go past that. And right now, there's depth. You've had to rely on a lot of that depth because that talent hasn't been available as much as you need it to be this season. Those are two different things. And look, I know it's easy, and I know the narrative's out there. I know it's very easy to blame everything on the front office because they could have kept everybody from last season and everything would have been fine. I disagree they could have kept everybody. I don't think that was even feasible. I don't think it was even close to feasible. And the only move that probably needs a little more examination is the Leandro Gonzalez Perez one to Tijuana, because that one was the most surprising of them. I didn't see that coming. Gressel, it was going to come down to a new deal, and they couldn't find it, and they upgraded with Brooks Lennon. I completely think that they upgraded with Brooks Lennon because he gives you more versatility. and he's giving you that at a better price. Julian Gressel hasn't really done much at all for DC this season. Darlington Nagbe you couldn't keep. You just couldn't. That wasn't going to happen. So I know the storyline, and I know it's so easy to say there's no talent in this team. That's just not true. The parts about where the talent has been able to play a lot this season, that's a different conversation. That's an entirely different conversation. I do think they need to upgrade at the 6. I think they have some questions in terms of how much of the depth can you keep because of cap purposes. Those are the things I come back to. But to say this team doesn't have starting level talent, it's incorrect in my opinion. Because, I mean, just look at the guys we're talking about here. I don't think you're arguing that any of them are not starting level talent.
Jake says, I still think it'll take more than just Joseph's return to get back to where we want to be. I can only hope the club feels the same. The team is frustrating to watch, not fun.
All right, hold on. Jake, come on. You hope the club feels the same way. Why would you not think that the club feels the same way? Why would you think that the club doesn't want to win? One, I disagree with your level of where you're saying this talent is, but that's not even I don't even know why that's being said. And Jake's not the only one saying it. I'm saying this because Jake said it. And Jake, I disagree with you. I'm glad you said this because it opens up this door to talk about it. Why would anybody think, because we've had these things said to us on the show, Arthur Blank's not spending enough money. Right? What? They don't care about winning. What? It doesn't make any sense. Look, I know people are frustrated. I'm frustrated. I was frustrated after that game last night. Everybody's frustrated. Nobody wants to be in the situation this team's in. But to start taking it to that point of people don't care and people aren't trying to make the team better, and I hope that the front office cares as much as we do. Come on, guys. Come on. That doesn't make any sense to say with what you've seen here. This is not the Atlanta Braves of 1985. This is not the Atlanta Falcons of 1985. This is not the Atlanta Hawks where they were happy to get the 8th seed in the playoffs year after year after year. Why would you think that? This team went out and spent better and more off the bat just a couple of years ago than you've seen out of any team outside of LAFC. Who's right there with you? They've won a championship. They've won an Open Cup. They beat Club America in a Campeones Cup match. They've been to the CONCACAF Champions League twice. They've built an academy that's producing players. Why would you think that they don't care? I know there are easy narratives out there to start jumping on, and I know it's an easy thing when you don't know what's going on to say, well, they just don't care. They made all these bad moves. They just don't care. Stop. This team has done more in a short period of time than the Falcons, than the Hawks. The Braves have got it together here lately. And it's the same argument on that side because I've seen it there too. Now we're having different conversations about spending with the Braves. But you're talking about a team that has progressed to the point they're at. They're in the NLCS. They should have won the NLCS this year. They didn't. I get how we can be frustrated as Atlanta sports fans, but be frustrated. Talk about the right things. Don't fall back on these kinds of arguments. This season has been incredibly difficult for Atlanta United. Nobody is satisfied with it. Nobody has given you any indication that they're satisfied with it. If there was an indication of being satisfied with it, you wouldn't have seen a coaching change. You wouldn't have seen Cubo Torres brought in here when you did. You wouldn't have seen Marcelino Moreno signed as quickly as you could. You wouldn't have seen Jurgen Damm brought in when he was. You wouldn't have seen any other attempts to make this team better this season. You wouldn't have seen any of that. You wouldn't see what they do off the field to try to give this team every opportunity to win. You wouldn't see any of that. You wouldn't. I don't get it. You can be disappointed because your favorite player's not here any longer. I get that. I totally understand that. But that doesn't mean that the front office doesn't care or doesn't know what they're doing. That doesn't make sense when you see what they're doing. Mizzano and Christopher Abel in the Twitch pitch. I want to chime in on this. Mizzano says we don't know how good of a player Marcelino Moreno is yet. We do know. And Christopher Abel said, I wish they'd spent more to get a better player than Marcelino Moreno. Look, we do know how good of a player he is. We don't know how good of a player he will be in Atlanta yet. That needs to be understood. How many times have we seen signings, not in MLS, around the world, of good players from good leagues not make it? It happens. You can't ever guarantee that a signing will be 100% successful, but, I mean, Marcelino Moreno hasn't even played 90 minutes yet, so let's chill a little bit on that. We know how good of a player he is because of what he did in the Argentine League, which is a very good league and a very good barometer of talent. Because not just even coming from the league, we've seen Lanús send players here in Miguel Almiron and do well. Diego Valeri, Sebastian Blanco. That's not just a wild card, okay, we've got money to spend, let's just go throw it over here and get this guy. No, it's not. There's more to it than that. And also, I think, long-term, the idea that he's going to be totally a number 10 might not be true either. And he might not be a designated player the whole time he's here either. Keep that in mind, which changes the paradigm. I don't know. I get frustrated when it feels like because results aren't where people want, and more importantly, because certain players aren't here any longer, people have changed their mood on the front office, the team, the club as a whole, all those things that I don't know what to tell you, because players do come and go, and you do have injuries, and you do have bad seasons, and you do have these things happen. It's part of sports. And if it becomes a trend, then we're having a different conversation. One season in the midst of a global pandemic where your top striker has been injured for all but 60 minutes, I think is how many he played in Nashville, of the season, is not a trend. So, I don't know. I hope that it's people upset. I hope that it's people who are frustrated. I hope that these are not rational thoughts in terms of the front office not caring, and I hope they care like I do. That's just not accurate. That's what these people's lives are.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Jake wraps it up by just saying, the team's frustrating to watch, not fun. 3 shutouts in 4 games, barely any shots on target.
See, I don't know, because somebody else said it was the most fun they've had watching this team since the restart. So, I mean, I don't think it's either one. I think it was a game where you couldn't get a rhythm. I thought it was a game that had some promise. I thought it was a game you should have got a result in. But no, I don't think this team's hard to watch. That's my opinion. Again, I'm also biased. You guys know that. I'm not trying to hide that. I'm not going to lie to y'all and say, like, I can completely separate everything. No, I've seen every game. I'm emotionally invested. I am. There's no hiding that. But I don't think this team is impossible to watch, because I've seen soccer that's hard to watch. I've seen it in the city before. I've seen it just in general. I don't think this team is that. I think this is frustrating because you know it can be better, and it hasn't gotten there yet. That's the frustrating part.
D-Track says, the best game we've played post-Peachy. The future looks up.
See, that's the thing. Like, that's it. I don't know. Like, I honestly don't think it's either one. That wasn't the feeling I had either way coming out of last night. Last night was frustrating because of how you lost the result. If it had finished scoreless, I would have been more positive on it, period. I still wouldn't have been where I think some people are in saying how good it was. The second half showed a lot of promise. It never got past spark for me. Like, it, with Barco, with Moreno, you saw them trying to find one another. You saw them trying to connect, but they've probably been on the field together, period, 3-4 days? Maybe. I mean, I don't know if Barco's trained every day that Marcelino Moreno has, but, I mean, not much. So, how can we expect them to be anywhere other than where they are right now, trying to get to know one another? it looked like that attack in the second half looked like a team that was hanging out for the first time, because in a lot of ways they were trying to get to understand the group dynamics. So it is. Uncle Uncle says, and who's responsible for this year's results? There's a difference, and that's the thing I want to say real quick. Tell me what you would have done differently with the off-season stuff, because I don't think there's a way to answer it without knowing where you are up against the cap. You weren't keeping Nagbe. Gressel wanted too much money, in my opinion. You went and got Brooksland, and you handled that one. You can talk about the Nagbe one, but I don't think you were keeping him. You can say whoever failed in whatever new acquisition you want. That's fine. We can get into that. The biggest effect this season is not having Joseph Martinez, and that's not the front office's fault. And they tried to deal with everything they could to correct that. There's nothing you can do there. Also, just the effects of having a pandemic have made everything more difficult. They have. It's just a fact. I don't know. It is what it is. But there's a difference between what I'm saying, Uncle, and I want to make this point clear. You can go back, and it usually takes more than, 20-something games to really determine if a move was done right or if this person came in was good or not. It doesn't happen that fast. But there's a difference between saying they should have signed somebody else than this player and saying they don't care and they don't care like I do. Those are two separate things. Or they don't know what they're doing, or they're awful, or this or that. Those are two completely different things. No front office, just like we said about every player, no front office gets every move 100% correct. It's impossible. Unless you got a crystal ball and a wizard behind you. It's just impossible. The best front offices miss on players. We mentioned the New England Patriots a lot. How many times have they missed on things? They have. It happens. Clubs like Real Madrid. I mean, they just gave up James for nothing. The Gareth Bale signing, did that work out for Madrid? You could argue yes or no, depending on your perspective. They paid a lot of money for a yes or no question. Look, it's not easy to do this. But the idea that they don't know what they're doing or they don't care, that's where you're making it personal for something that just doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know. Anyway, and I'm not saying you did, Uncle. Sorry, that's from the other conversation. My bad, Uncle. I'm not trying to pick on you. I see stuff coming through the chat at times, so I'm trying to bring that into the conversation as well and juggling everything. My bad. Again, I'm probably not being fair to anybody right now, so I'll stop. Go ahead. What's next?
Turner Kirby says, absolutely shameful performance offensively. Blunders offensively killed the momentum, had them on the ropes. You let them win. Wait, this is a soccer podcast.
Yeah, good times with the Braves last night. They had their opportunities. They didn't get it done. And I didn't see the entire sequence with the base running blunder, but yeah, it wasn't pretty. I do think they got the tag. I think he missed on the dive, but he got his foot. I think he got a little bit lucky with the tag. All the replays I saw, it looked like he caught his foot. Yes, no? Okay. Did you have any opinion on that?
I didn't see what you were talking about. I wasn't watching the Braves last night.
You didn't see any highlights of anything from the Braves?
Mm-mm.
How do you miss these things? Okay, never mind.
I was watching the West Coast games. I had two West Coast
Twitter's
games.
Twitter's a thing. Oh, yeah. Sorry, you don't have all the followers because your Twitter's weird or something.
Yes.
Because that's where I saw it, and I kept showing the replay. It looked like he caught his foot. Anyway.
Nope. No. I was not aware of this incident that you are speaking.
Okay. Go ahead.
What? No, I guess.
No, go to something else because I don't want to be mean to anybody anymore. I'm trying not to be. I'm sorry.
Nathan Q says, for his hashtag Overreaction Monday, whatever, at least the Falcons didn't lose.
But didn't we kind of want them to lose? Because of the draft? Tanking for Trevor, isn't that the idea?
Yeah. Then Nathan says, can you say disco with a Brit accent? Apparently Jordan Pickford has avoided disciplinary action for the Virgil van Dijk challenge.
Yeah, it's horrendous. Should have been red carded. Reportedly, the VAR didn't even look at it because they were worried about the offside more. There was some confusion on if the VAR could do anything about it, or if the referee could do anything about it because it was offside. Yes, they could have. You could have ruled that as violent conduct. You absolutely could have done that. Reportedly, the VAR did not look at that challenge, which is horrendous. and now he's going to be out for a long period of time. I have seen, I think it was ESPN FC saying that the goalkeeper should be suspended as long as Van Dijk is out, and that's not how anything works. So let's stop that kind of silliness, because that's just not what happens. We all know that. But Pickford absolutely should have been red carded, and Liverpool should have had a man advantage in that game. They did not get the proper refereeing decisions in that one.
Under the weather is absolutely gutted with this loss, with the second half looking so much better. What is your best 11 for Atlanta for the rest of this season, assuming all except Joseph are healthy? And what's your back four if Franco remains out?
Well, it's two things. If everybody's healthy, Franco's in. He's a center back and Lennon's a right back. If Franco's out, then the back line is at its best. Bello, Robinson, Escobar's out. I'm going to go Robinson and Walks and Lennon at right back. Midfield is Jeff, Heinemann, and Moreno. Left wing is Barco. Right wing is Dom. And up top, it's Kubo Torres. That's what I think is your best 11. I don't think you're going to get that best 11 on the field for 360 minutes to see the season out. So you've got to have Mo Adams. You've got to have John Gallagher. You've got to have Jake Mulroney. You've got to have Adam John. You've got to have Fernando Meza. You've got to have Eric Remetti give you minutes in these games. You're going to have to. And it comes down to you need to play your best soccer of the season in 4 games, and I don't know how close you are to doing it.
Marshall Voigt says, I vote we completely ignore everything that happened in the sports world this past weekend and instead do a deep dive into how great Ted Lasso is.
I haven't seen it, so I can't do that. Okay, keep going. Sorry, I'm going to come back to the Twitch pitch. I'm trying not to misunderstand stuff, so sorry. I'll come back to it. Keep going.
Daniel Price, I'm all in favor of ignoring this weekend. We went to the park yesterday. My wife, daughter, and I had a wonderful picnic. The temperature wasn't too low, and we got to see and hear the rumbling waters of the Chattahoochee. That's about the last thing I remember.
Look, this is sports, y'all. I mean, it's what happens. If you're not good enough to win the game, you run the risk of losing the game. Go ahead. That's the nature of it. Go ahead.
Okay, Chris Hutchison. I liked what I saw last night. I'm seeing what I hoped for: steady improvement, better organization, and better chemistry. I'm disappointed we didn't get points, but I like that Glass felt good enough to push for a win instead of settling for a draw, and then he has a subsequent point.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you saw the way that game played out, you had to go for the win because Toronto was on tired legs at the beginning of the game and at halftime with knowing what you had on the bench and knowing probably what your plan was, or at least your plan in mind was to go for it in the second half. Yeah, everything lined up for it. Just didn't deliver.
Second point from Chris. So long as these compressed schedules exist, I'm in favor of continuing the 5 substitute dispensation. Why should players' futures be jeopardized by not allowing proper rest between games? Yeah.
If this is the schedule, then yeah, you should have 5 subs, in my opinion. I think it's foolish not to, because these are not normal schedules. These are not normal calendars for players. It's very difficult.
Rich Ransom's in with a couple of points this morning. And he says, re the supporters' shield. The season may have been uneven, but to me it just seems like the supporters' shield didn't know how they were going to do the handoff of the shield to the winning team and supporters and just decided that there'll be no winner instead.
I don't like what the Supporters Shield Foundation did, and I might be in the minority on that. And that's fine. Feels like that's how today's going anyway. I think it's kind of selfish, to be perfectly honest. I think it's insulting to the Toronto players if they're the ones who end up winning it. The league is not going to... They're not going to deny the normal things that come with being the best team in the regular season. Those things happened, even though it's a different kind of season. You weren't going to play everybody anyway this season. Like, those days are probably done with the size of the league and the structure of the league. So, to announce it the way they did now does a disservice to it. Look, it's symbolic. I think maybe there's a lot of confusion with this. The Supporters Shield Foundation started among supporters in 1996 on the old North American Soccer email list pre-Twitter, pre-message boards, pre-anything. It was an email list. I'm pretty sure. No, actually, I know I did. I donated, I think, $20 for the first trophy to be made. It's a very cool thing that the supporters around the league at that time and since have put together and kept going and present, and it's important. It's an important thing. I hope it stays important. I don't think it's as important as MLS Cup, and that's not to criticize the supporters. It's just to say that this is a league that's founded on playoffs. You're going to have playoffs. The playoff champion is your champion. That's just how it is. The Supporter Shield is less meaningful as the schedule gets less balanced. That's okay, too. This season would be the least meaningful Supporter Shield. But to deny the team the opportunity to have the trophy that is the supporters' trophy in a year where players and staff are sacrificing a lot to give the supporters something, even if they're not in the building, to be able to watch, to be able to talk about this, to be able to be frustrated like today, to not give that team the reward as supporters to support them in their efforts, I think is missing the point. I really do. I don't think it was the right move to make. And it sounds like the whole situation was handled very poorly because the Toronto supporters have said they weren't involved in the decision and they had nothing to do with it, and they weren't, I guess they hadn't been consulted. They didn't get it to vote. I don't know how that goes. I think LAFC supporters have said similar things. I don't know why doing it in all of this way had any meaning. I don't get it. I don't. And I think it's a very poor precedent to set. I don't blame Toronto for being angry about it at all. I don't. Go ahead.
Here's what Greg Banning said to Christian Jack. Quote, "My players are pissed. It's a huge sign of disrespect to the players. It has arguably been the most difficult season in the history of our league where people have put their health at risk to play and put games on television for fans. This season required a huge commitment from all the teams. People were genuinely afraid for their health. It's a disgraceful decision that delegitimizes the whole idea of the Shield, in our opinion. Those made the decision are like kids in a park who take the ball away when the game isn't going their way. It's childish and a symbol that they don't know how sports operates," end quote.
It does feel very selfish. It feels like it's trying to become bigger than the game. And supporters are a massive part of it, but we've had these conversations with some different things that have been said around this league and around other leagues during all of this. The initial comments out of the Bundesliga and out of ultras in Germany that, you can't play games if we're not in the building. Well, then your clubs are going to go away. It's just, and if that played into this decision, because, and they did say it in their statement about supporters not being able to attend, well, then you're not going to have something to support. And that's the reality of it. Vanny's right in saying how professional sports work. Toronto deserves to be recognized for what they have done this year if they end up winning the thing. They absolutely do, because it's been harder in a lot of ways than a normal year. Alex Bassine says, point of clarity, the board voted, not the membership. That's why some people were surprised. Well, that's even worse in my opinion, because if you're going to make a decision like this, then it should be a bigger vote than the board. And maybe you just can't do that. Maybe, I don't know their bylaws, so maybe you don't have to. I don't know. It is a symbolic trophy, but it is, I think, an insult to Toronto to not do it this way and to announce it now. I mean, if you had announced it a month ago, 2 months ago, I don't think it would be the same reaction. If you had said, look, we don't know how the rest of the season's going to go. We don't know how the season's going to play out. We're not going to award the Supporters Shield trophy. I mean, I still think it'd be a bad decision, but it wouldn't be as insulting to do it now as you're getting down to the home stretch to say, yeah, you guys have worked really hard and you were probably looking forward to doing this, but yeah, we're not giving it to you. I don't know. I got nothing. I disagree with it though, and I think it's the wrong decision. So, well, nothing's going to change with it. I mean, they can't go back on it now because then they'd look kind of foolish. But Toronto will get all the things that come with winning the Supporters Shield. I think there's a bonus. What else did MLS say? Obviously, number one seed, all that kind of stuff. So none of that's going to go away. It's just not getting to lift the trophy that supporters paid for and can do what they want with it. I just think withholding it in a year like this is kind of missing the point.
Point two from Rich. He says, and if tonight's hashtag Philadelphia versus New England Revs match is Monday Night Football.
Monday Night Football.
Please be football lines. Please be football lines. Please be football lines. Please be football lines. Union win 3-2.
I don't really care about football lines. I don't like them, but I don't know. I've seen too many games on high school fields with like 27 different lines on it that I'm just kind of immune to it at this point. I do think that the excuses are probably over for teams to not get rid of the football lines on turf fields, especially because we've seen it here that they're able to do it.
Yeah.
The technology exists. I mean, I remember Seattle saying for years, like, we got to have 48 hours. We got to have 48 hours. The first time Atlanta United played a Saturday night game and the Falcons played at 1 o'clock on Sunday and you couldn't see anything, it's like, okay, your 48 hours needs to go in the trash and you can actually get this done.
Third point from Rich this morning. He says, until you have your owner go on a live televised press conference and say your team is not going to spend any money like Jay Sugarman did for the Union for 10 years, miss me with that Arthur Blank isn't spending on Atlanta United BS.
Yeah, I'm sorry. There's just no track record for that. Mirix20, hey, what's up in the Twitch pitch? It's withheld because these teams have only played against 4 or 5 other teams. Look, I know, I get it. But the argument about the Supporter Shield trophy was about the balance of the schedule. You didn't have a balanced schedule when the season started. You weren't going to play everybody. Like, it was more balanced, but none of that really matters to me in this point. The season is what the season is. You know, it's not Toronto's fault. It's not the league's fault. It's not anybody's fault that we're in a pandemic. It's not anybody in the soccer side's fault anyway. They're the best team. You know, I would give them the trophy out of just what they've had to deal with this year, especially Toronto. I mean, having to leave home and be in Hartford for stretches of time to play the season out. Yeah, they got a little bit of a benefit playing Montreal and Vancouver over and over again. That's nice. I'd still give them the trophy. I don't think it doesn't raise the level of the trophy. It doesn't do anything positive for the trophy by saying we're not going to give it. It doesn't make it more meaningful. It doesn't elevate it. It's still the same. It is the supporters recognizing the best team in the league. So basically now they're saying we're not going to recognize the best team this season, and we're saying the season doesn't matter. And I don't think that's fair to the players. I don't think that's fair to the clubs. So that's just my opinion. Give them the asterisk. I mean, yeah, for sure. I mean, that's what everybody said about all kinds of different things this year. And look, I don't really care. I mean, we're going to remember 2020 for the rest of our lives in a lot of different ways. There's just no way around that. So we'll remember. It won't be like 95 in the Braves and they played a few fewer games than normal. It's going to be different in a lot of different things. It's going to have a different feel. Even the NFL, who looks like they're going to play a full schedule and pretty much the schedule that was announced, even them, people are going to look at like, oh, they won in 2020. That's a little different. You still won. And in this case, if they're the best team in whatever the season is, give them the trophy just because you're supporters, just because you support what they're doing. I think these players and staff and people at the club need that in a year like 2020. They don't need it to be withheld. That's all. No, there's no right way to go about the Supporter Shield in general now because it's not going to be a balanced schedule ever. So the trophies, actually, let me say not the trophy because it's more about the actual result. The result's not as meaningful because you're not playing everybody anyway, and you're not playing everybody home and away ever again. So, you know, the actual award of it, how different is it in a year like this versus that? So, I don't know. I think they should have done it. I just don't think they gain anything by doing this, and they actually hurt what the work that everybody's put in to build this foundation and build this up. I think they detract from it by doing this more than they actually gain anything.
Couple more on Twitter. Do you want me to thank somebody first or keep going?
Let's see. Go ahead and prepare your thanking of Mr. Apolinsky in Decatur, GA.
I could do that. Apolinsky and Associates, LLC, proud supporters of everything soccer down here and the SDH network, wrongful death and serious injury attorneys. And if this is a conversation that you need to have, you can have it with Steve. You can have it with Apolinski and Associates LLC attorneys. A couple different ways that you can do it. You can shoot Steve an email, steve at aa-legal.com. Get a free consultation at 404-377-9191. Or go to the website, aa-legal.com. And large device or small, whichever device size you use, you hit enter, you hit return, you hit advance. Next screen that pops up is their homepage. When the homepage pops up, a pop-up window pops up because that's what pop-up windows do. They pop up. 24/7, 365 and a quarter. You can have a conversation with someone at the other end of the line on that pop-up window. Could even be Steve. Don't know. But you could do a couple of different ways. Recognizes Legal Elite, Georgia Trend Magazine top 100 firms in this here state of Georgia. If wrongful death and serious injury matters is a conversation that you need to have, only one firm that you need to have that conversation with. It is Apolinski and Associates LLC. The website is aa-legal.com. I read it too quickly.
Yeah, you did. You kind of were flying through that one.
Bart's in this morning.
What's up, Bart?
And he says, the Braves eliminated from the playoffs and Atlanta United loses any chance they had to make them on the same night is cruel. Chicago has a game in hand. Nashville has two. Both are above Atlanta in the standings. It was a good effort, but this team and staff weren't meant for success.
Oh, see, there you go again. The way the season has gone, I'll go back to the night in Nashville. I was more optimistic that they would find a way to be competitive. And that at that point, I mean, we had heard about the coronavirus. Nobody saw the league shutting down after one more round of games. It wasn't part of the conversation on the trip to Nashville at all. I think it was starting to become part of the conversation a week later, by the home game. It accelerated really fast from Cincinnati to Mexico to then shutting down 4 or 5 days later. That's madness when you go back and look at it. I think maybe there was at least some conversation the second week of the season about no fans in the stands and playing behind closed doors. I know that was the conversation by the time Wednesday rolled around for CONCACAF. I know that was on the table at that point, but hadn't been decided. That was what the NBA had decided before Rudy Gobert. I thought when Joseph got injured, and we knew a couple of days later that it was ACL and he's out for the year, or out for a long period of time anyway. Before thinking this year was going to be what it was, I thought they would be better than they have. You still had a transfer window at that point for 2 months because it would have been through early May. You had time to potentially go out and get a replacement. You wouldn't have got Kubo Torres if things had continued. Well, you could have, but you would have paid a transfer or you would have had to get him out of his contract or whatever because he was still under contract. You would have had to get him differently than you did. We'll never know what they could have done at that point. They would have had the injury replacement situation that they added Kubo Torres to the roster under, but I don't know how much room they would have had in the cap. I don't know what they could have done to replace him. I thought Frank DeBoer would figure out a better way. You know, we talked a lot about Pity Martinez as a false nine. We only saw it one time in Mexico. It never felt like Frank got his head around the way to solve that problem. You also, in the midst of solving the problem, had a global pandemic, which doesn't help you solve a problem, and that showed. It was a really poor Orlando tournament. That's the thing, is I think it's hard to separate all that. It's hard to separate all that when you say, like, you know, this team didn't deserve success. I think they would have had success at full strength this season. I do. Would they have won the title? There's no way to know. I think the way they were playing early on was good. I liked the idea of the 3-4-3 with Barco and Pitti underneath Joseph. I think that chemistry would have continued to grow, and if everybody stayed healthy, that's an attack that very few teams could deal with. I liked where it was headed at that point. When Joseph got hurt, everything changed, but I did expect them to be better without Joseph. That's been my biggest disappointment. It was my biggest disappointment with Frank that he didn't figure out something and stick with it. It never felt like he had confidence in the solutions, because we saw John, we saw Pitti, we saw Castro, We saw John. I think we saw John again in the Columbus game, and then it all changed in the second half. So it never felt like anything could build. That was my biggest disappointment there. It's my biggest disappointment of the year. I thought they could solve that problem better, and it just never happened. But to say that you didn't deserve it going back to the beginning, I don't think is fair. If you want to say they haven't gotten the decisions right since, okay. I think they've tried. I think getting Dom, even though there was a lot of talk that had already been agreed upon before it was announced, because you were waiting until his contract ended to get him on a free. Getting Dom, getting Torres, trying to make the moves that you did. There was an effort, but it hasn't happened. And I can't figure out why Frank didn't have confidence in what he was trying to do. Maybe he just couldn't settle on something. I don't know. Maybe the players didn't respond. Maybe he felt like he had confidence and then the response was poor. I don't know. That's a conversation I'd love to have over a beer and pick his brain on that one, because that's the one that I expected to be better. I really did.
Chiefs coach Steve was talking with a friend this morning, and this is what he said. I'm just emotionally spent and have been since Orlando. The only thing I've looked for has been improvement, and I've seen it. Mm-hmm. So I'm resigned yet good, still a huge supporter, just accept this year, for we've underperformed for three main reasons. 1, the FDB kerfuffle. 2, Joseph's injury. And 3, 2020.
The part that I maybe it's just because the team's new. I don't know. There shouldn't be a question about people still being supporters. Like, that shouldn't even be a thing here. And maybe that's some of my frustration, and I'm just not verbalizing it well. To be a supporter is supposed to be different than being just a fan. A supporter shouldn't even think about leaving the team they support because they've had a rough year with injuries and it hasn't all come together. Like, that shouldn't even be a thing. I don't know. I don't know. I can't answer that. Everybody's different in the way they support. But that's not a unique sentiment, and it's been a little surprising. So I don't know. I've seen a lot of people feel like turn on it, and man, that's been fast. That's been fast after 3 really good years. And yes, 2019 was a really good year. It's easy to rewrite history on that. And it's everybody doing it from local to national. But 2019 was a very good year. There's a lot of clubs in this league that would kill for that kind of year. The LA Galaxy would kill for that kind of year these days. And they're one of the biggest clubs in the league. They haven't had years like that since Bruce Arena left. So, yeah, I don't get that. I don't understand it. And it's like, if you're all in, you're all in. And this is not a year that you walk on, because Joseph's injury did happen. 2020 and the weirdness that it's had has happened. The other injuries, getting Dom and Torres and then them getting hurt again. Barco's injuries, like, all of those things have happened, and they've made it more difficult. So I don't know if that's enough to not want to be a supporter anymore. Then okay, I don't know how really all in you were. Like, Braves fans, and I do hate it when people, because I can't consider myself a Braves, like, ride or die, because I don't follow baseball the same way like I used to. When I was a kid, I was. Now I don't watch a lot of baseball anymore. I'm not going to tell Braves fans, like, no, you can't be upset, or no, you can't be angry, or no, you can't be angry because other people are angry. Like, I can't tell them that, because I don't have that emotional feeling. So it is what it is. I'm just a little surprised that it's been this fast, because it's felt like there has been a turn against things that just really doesn't make sense based off the reality of the situation. I don't know.
Then last one in the barn right now comes from Chris Hutchison. He says, yeah, if you're going to rebuild, do it right. The way things are improving right now, I think we're all going to be disappointed when this season ends, but in a state of heightened anticipation for the 2021 season.
I don't think you're going to rebuild. I don't think you need to rebuild. Like, that's the thing. Let's go back to what that lineup could look like for next year. If that lineup is not good, tell me, because I think it is. I think if you have Joseph Martinez up top, Jurgen Damm, Marcelino Moreno, Emerson Hyndman, Ezequiel Barco. That is your, in a 4-1-4-1, it's a 4-3-3, but if we just want to explain it in a 4-1-4-1, that's fine. Joseph, left to right, Barco, Moreno, Hyndman, Damm, a number 6. Jeff is that number 6 right now. If that's a position that you go out and add somebody to, okay, I think it's needed. Backline, Bello, Robinson, Escobar, Lennon. I think that is your best lineup. That's a very good lineup. That's a very good lineup. And how often have we seen that lineup? Never. And how often have we seen the majority of that lineup? Not much. Not much. So, I think that's good. I don't think it's a rebuild. I think you need a 6. I think you're going to have some decisions to make about that second tier on the roster. You know, players like Mo Adams, like Eric Remedi, Mateus Hosatu, Anton Walks, Fernando Meza, who maybe has fallen into that second tier. Because I love what I've seen from Escobar at center back. I'm trying not to let a short sample size here, cloud my judgment. But I think he can be a better center back than he can right back, and I think he's a good right back. But I think he can be an even better center back. I think you're going to have decisions to make about that second tier, but I like that lineup when you add a top 6 to it. And if that means you have to sacrifice a little bit on how much veteran depth you have to clear more cap space, and you have to rely, on players coming up from Atlanta United too, on homegrowns a little bit more, on a Jackson Conway, for example, or on a draft pick or whatever. If you have to rely on some of that as more depth, maybe you have to. Maybe you can't have quite as deep of a roster if you want to get that 6. And you're going to have to develop your depth. Because I think the 6 is the biggest thing that can take this team to another level. And it's not a knock on Jeff Larentowicz. It's just I don't know if he's going to be here next year. I don't know if he can continue to do what he's doing year after year after year. That's the position that feels like the one that needs an upgrade and could have the biggest effect going forward.
All right, we are caught up on Twitters. What's going on the Twitch pitch?
All right, so Twitch pitch, y'all can chime in. If you're still listening on Twitter, you can chime in as well. Just continue to do it. John will break in with that. Real quick around the league, Miami lost to Montreal 2-1. Gonzalo Higuain got a red card after the match, which is just hilarious. Miami had an absolute meltdown after that match, and it was kind of embarrassing. Leandro Gonzalez-Perez took a horrible dive at the end and then got in everybody's face, and it was kind of a joke. Miami looked very, very immature with a lot of veterans in that group in the way that they lost and the way they acted at the loss. The LA Galaxy did get a win, 1-0. There are still rumors swirling about Guillermo Barros Schelotto. Chicharito did not start, and Schelotto said it was his decision. Kai Koreniuk got the late goal to win it, and he was a player that went to Schelotto and said, what do I have to do to play more? You score late goals to win games, you're probably going to play more. That's a good way to do it. LAFC got a 1-1 draw in Portland. Christian Torres, their homegrown 16-year-old, got a goal in stoppage time. Big deal for them. They needed that. They get the performance from the kid. Seattle is the best team in MLS, according to Matias Almeida. San Jose did get a scoreless draw at home against them. Minnesota had a 2-goal lead, threw it away. Houston came back, 2-2 draw there. Mentioned DC going to Cincinnati and winning 2-1. Donovan Pines and Chris Adui-Achim are your goal scorers. Not who you had on the board for that one.
No.
Bobby Edwards, the goalkeeper for Cincinnati, does not need to look at these highlights ever.
No.
Very bad night. Orlando threw away 3 points. It was a 1-1 draw with the Red Bulls. Brian White with a stoppage time, 95th minute equalizer. Columbus got a 3-1 win over NYC. The questions about Ronnie Dyla still have to be out there. And it looks like Seattle is sending Handwala Buana to Nashville and getting a player in return, an attacking player. There's some rumors that it could be Daniel Rios. People are trying to connect the dots. I'd be a little surprised about that. It'd be a great get for Seattle if they can. Buana wants more playing time. and he feels like there's a logjam in his position in Seattle, and if he wasn't going to play more, he wanted to go, and the team's going to allow that. So that could be announced here at any point. Questions. ATL UTD Tom. Rebuild for next season? No. Decisions need to be made on Jeff. We need a strong number 6. Barco, is he staying or going? Yes, and that's absolutely one. And if he goes, you're replacing him with a designated player. So even though I say Barco, if an offer comes in, if Barco goes in January, you're going to replace him either with a number 10 or with a left winger, depending on how you feel about everything else. We have too many midfielders, Tom says. And adding Moreno, yeah. I mean, it was already crowded. Adding Moreno, yes. Now, you've got the questions on Jeff, on Adams, on Remedi, on Josetu, on Hindman. No questions about Moreno, but that's 5 of their questions. What's it going to look like next year with that midfield trio that you would expect? Don't know. Mirix 20, as Chicharito currently the most overpaid and underperforming designated player? 100%. There's just no question. I've been blown away by it. I thought he would do more for the LA Galaxy. It hasn't helped that I don't think Schelotto has gotten the most out of him. I don't think Schelotto's figured out how to get him proper service. The team's felt disjointed all year. Again, 2020 weirdness hasn't helped him at all either. He's had injuries as well. He's got to come good next year, or that's going to be a move that the Galaxy will have to move on from quickly. And look, that's a club that can afford to spend the money on a Chicharito and take the risk. I didn't think it would be that big of a risk. I didn't. I thought he would perform much better. He hasn't. So if it doesn't work next year, they're going to have to move on quickly because they're not going to win anything with Chicharito performing the way he is. The problem for the Galaxy that they need to understand is they're not going to win anything if he is performing right now because their defense is awful.
Yes.
Their defense is not good enough to win championships, and they haven't addressed that since 2017. So they can move on from Chicharito. They can go get whatever next big major forward they want. They've got to upgrade defensively, or none of it's going to matter, in my opinion. Monteflo, since you mentioned him, what are your thoughts on Mo Adams? I think he brings a lot of energy and coverage, but he tends to not be as technically sound as Remedi, which makes sense. I'll actually argue that one a little bit. Adams covers more ground, that's for sure. I think in terms of tactical awareness, it's fairly similar. Both of them concern me at times with that. Technically, I think they're similar in that Adams can make up for whatever technical deficiency he has with his quickness. Remedi's not as strong technically as he needs to be for his lack of quickness. Remedi feels like at times he loses the awareness of what's around him. He turns into trouble, and he doesn't have that next gear to fix it. Adams does. I mean, Adams, you'll see a slightly heavy touch, but then he'll still get on the ball and burst through because he's got that. And that can only take you so far. And there's times where you need a little more from him, absolutely. But I don't know if either one is really demonstrably better than the other. Monteflo says he's been good for the team of late, but also has giveaways in bad spots, again, like Remedi. I'm not sold on him, but I'm not in the get him out of here camp. I think when you compare the salaries, that also has to factor in here. Because Adams is on a really cap-friendly deal. I don't think Remedi is. So that's going to change the conversation. If they're very similar, that's not a good situation for Eric Remedi. I wanted to pull something up because I've seen this about Mo Adams and giveaways a lot. It's actually funny. I'm looking at SofaScore right now to pull up their stats and ratings for the season. Adams is 6.76 and Remedi's 6.74.
Wow.
So they're right there. Adams. Sorry, I've got Adams pulled up. Adams passing 90%. One of the higher numbers in the league for players who have played about that much, not quite a regular. 90%, his own half it's 94, and the opposition half it's 84%. 1.6 tackles per game, 0.6 interceptions per game. That's a lot of defensive actions. Okay, so Remedi, remember those baselines a little bit. For Eric, when you compare passing 84%, own half 91%, opposition half 76%. A lot of defensive actions with him too. Interceptions 1, tackles 1.2 per game. Possession lost for Remedi 9.2, and let's see what that is for Adams. So it's pretty similar. Adams is a little bit better passer. Remedi might be a little more active defensively, which I wouldn't have expected. Possessions lost, for Remedi it was 9.2. For Adams it's 5.5 for the season. That's a stat that I don't put all my stock in because I think at times it can lump a few different things together, but that's a pretty big difference. I don't feel like Adams loses the ball as much as Remedi. I don't. And maybe it's some of the ones from Remedi this season have been glaring. Maybe I just expect more from Eric Remedi, to be honest. But if it comes down to a cap situation, Adams is far more cap friendly, and I do think that's going to factor into those decisions. Uncle and J-Dub both ask about Manuel Castro. I didn't mention him just because he was on loan, and he's out of that loan ends at the end of the year. I don't think he's done enough to be brought in on a permanent deal. I don't know if Estudiantes would want to loan him again, but I don't know if you're going to bring him on loan again if you're not going to bring him permanently. I don't think you need to do that. So I don't expect him back. He's had some opportunities here lately to change that, and I just don't think it's been quite enough. Hardworking player, solid. He's had some bad luck this season, but it just hasn't been enough to get him on a permanent. I think that's going to be tough.
Yep.
Harmless Bunny, with the young designated players coming in next year, do you think we look for starters or depth, and at what positions? So we know that Eric Lopez will factor into one of those spots. There's two more. We know that Ezequiel Barco could be gone, but he'd be replaced with another designated player. That's where it's hard to answer this question because young designated players probably more likely to be attacking players. I think they can impact games quicker if you're looking for that immediate impact, especially on the wing. So could you see a situation where Barco gets sold, you have a designated player spot, you have two young designated player spots open. You go and get a young designated player left winger, but you go and get a designated player central midfielder, and it could be a 10, it could be a 6. I could easily see that kind of scenario playing out because I think your strategy changes with your DPs now. You can go a little bit older. I don't ever see Atlanta as a team who, on a regular basis, is going to go get a 33-year-old designated player. It doesn't make sense. It hasn't fit with anything they've done. But do they look at 24, 25, 26-year-olds with those DP slots now with the young DP possibilities at U22 initiative? Yeah, I think you see more of that. With guys who could be like a Pitti who's here and then gets sold and you still make a profit, or guys who are here for a while and get sold maybe for less after being here for an extended run. That could happen too. So it's hard to say. I think the young designated players, Lopez is one of those wingers, and if you factor him in and you think, well, okay, if Barco goes and we bring in Lopez, could he play on the left wing and cut inside and give that space? Yeah, I think he's got that in his game. Do we feel like if Barco goes, we could use that designated player spot somewhere else on the field? Those are the conversations that are going to get really interesting. I don't think it's a rebuild by any stretch, but the offseason will be very interesting for those kinds of things because there's a lot of new wrinkles that could come into the conversation with what this roster looks like for next year. Uncle asked about Mulraney. The hard thing is we don't know, if he's on a 1 year with an option or on a multiple year deal. I like what Mulraney's given for depth. I think we've seen him in a starting role more than I would have expected this year, again, because of all the injuries. But for depth, off the bench, for speed, for his 1v1 ability, I like it. I like what he can bring. And he's had some good moments. He hasn't had enough consistent moments, and that's what you'd want to see. I was disappointed yesterday because I thought it was a big opportunity for him, and he really didn't influence the match much. And he had a couple of really bad giveaways that you luckily weren't punished on. But I wanted more from him yesterday because I thought it was there for him, and it just didn't materialize. So I do think he's here next year if it's all cap friendly and it works. I can't imagine he's on a big number. And I think he's good value for a bench player. For a guy who comes in, a spot starter, comes off the bench with speed. I'm good with that. And he's pretty versatile. He can play as a wing back. He can play on either side. If you really had to get crazy at the end of a match, you could throw him up top because of his speed. I think he's a good depth piece to have. Burns says, Adams doesn't sense danger defensively, unlike, say, Tyler Adams. Can't have that for a 6. Yeah, he's gotten better with that. He's better. I think the difference between the two is Adams is good 1v1 defending, and you need that from a 6. He's not good at the awareness of what's going on around him at times and positionally. That's what has to improve if he's going to be a 6 by himself. I think he's a good fit if you're playing 2 holding midfielders, because he's great in that situation because he can be aggressive and he can lean into the things that, make him a good player, and that he can cover a lot of ground. He can step into passing lanes. He can drive forward because he's quick. Those elements are very important. But if you're going to play as a solo 6, I do worry about him. He was better last night than I expected, though. But yeah, that's a little bit of a concern. What else we have on Twitter? I thought you had something.
Tafka says, like anything else, a fan base has to mature and learn how to handle major woes. This is a big year for growth and maturity. 2020 gave us a lot, in all caps, to handle. Probably a triple dose of off-yearness. It'll be good for the 17s in the long run.
I hope so. I hope that people don't, jump off of being a supporter of this club because of one bad year. I do not understand some of the. It's gotten toxic at times. That I don't understand, and that's why when I get frustrated with that element, when I get frustrated with, and probably get defensive, it's because of not just people saying, well, could you have kept this person? Could you have made this move differently? Could you have scouted here? Could you have done this? But when it takes that next step to, people are dumb. People don't know what they're doing. Like they didn't do a good job before. Like stuff like that. That's where I get frustrated. I'm surprised at how toxic it's gotten at times.
Yeah.
And I'm surprised at how some people have reveled in the toxicness. And honestly, fan the flames of it. And I don't get that. I don't understand it. A lot of that is just my mentality in general. I don't enjoy that side. I don't enjoy the cynicism. I don't enjoy, not having joy in the game. No, there's not a ton of joy right now because the results aren't where you want them to be. But still the feeling of, the feeling that I think some have embraced of hopelessness about it really doesn't make sense in the big context. And it's just taken on a different turn that I didn't expect this year. That's been a disappointment to me. I hope that changes. I hope that when we get through this season, people can, I think, put it in better context. And I hope that, if some of this is just down to 2020, breaking everybody's spirit in different ways, I can't wait for the day that we get out of that, because I've been really surprised at some of the responses and some of the levels of toxicity and some of the points of attacking people and attacking things about this club that people said they loved, to be perfectly honest, and now feel like they find joy in being just mean about it, to be honest. I don't know. I hope that goes away. I hope that's just not where we are as people in 2020. We'll see. But yeah, that's been the biggest surprise to me, and that's a step beyond the just learning through the hard times. I think, honestly, with sports, you build your connection stronger, for me, during those hard times. I think that's where you do kind of develop that passion. I always remember players and teams from the seasons where it was harder. Like, those are the things that stand out to me. Like this year, I'll remember, what we've seen from John Gallagher. I don't know if John Gallagher becomes a starter for this team. Probably not. But I'll remember John Gallagher, running himself into the ground at times this season. Brooks Lennon. You know, in a year where it would have been really easy to do what a lot of the LA Galaxy players and others have done, where it looks like they're not trying. You haven't seen that. Those are the things that I remember. Those are the things that build a stronger connection. They never, I don't know. They don't make me angry and toxic at people around me, but I hope that changes. Maybe it's just a 2020 thing. I don't know. That's been the biggest surprise for me. Who knows?
Now, I would hope that when the season is over, in whatever form the season is, that folks can sit there and look at the performances of guys like an Anton Walks.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Who came in and was, perceived to be a death piece. Yeah, it's great to have him back, all this kind of stuff. But to see his game evolve to where it is now, to be an integral piece of the depth at the back, to see what we're seeing out of a Jake Mulroney, to see what we're seeing out of a Mo Adams and his growth recently, to take that into a context, to see a John Gallagher bust his butt, to see a guy like Brooks Lennon come in here and short of, the last match or two, just basically turn into a cyborg and go out there each and every single time and give you the same results. And, to see the front office chase after a Jurgen Damm, to see our front office chase after a Marcelino Moreno, to see them chase after a Cubo Torres and bring in all of these pieces to try to continue momentum and work forward. I would like to hope that when this is over, you see all of the effort and work that went in from all these different dynamics and dimensions to give you the results that you got. And I would hope that there's that you can look back on it and there's this feeling of satisfaction, even though the end result may not be what you want. There's the levels of satisfaction that, they kept grinding, they kept after it, they kept doing things instead of just like the Galaxy sitting there and saying, I would hope that folks are looking at this after the fact and seeing the grind that this franchise did to get the results that they were getting.
For me, satisfaction's not the word. That's not the word I would use. Because you can't be satisfied with this.
True.
You can respect the work.
Yeah.
And, I think to just different teams that I've liked, and I'll remember players that I respect their work in tough times. You're not satisfied because this is a team that's not satisfied unless they're winning trophies. And you're not going to win one this year unless you go on a magical run. And it would be a magical run. That doesn't look likely. That's 2020. So there's no satisfaction on my end. But that still is not enough for some of the toxic levels of conversation about this team. Like they forgot how to soccer. They forgot how to do what they do. They forgot how to run a team. They forgot how to do social media. They forgot how to do things. No, that's not true. So, I don't know. Anyway, what else you got?
Chris Hutchison says, visualize Moreno and Dom dropping dimes in front of Joseph. Mm-hmm. That's 2021.
Mm-hmm. I really think Marcelino Moreno is going to be a player that Atlanta fans enjoy. He's not Miggy. He's not Pitti. He is Marcelino. He's got elements of both. I think when he is comfortable, and he didn't look comfortable last night. The pitch was not easy to deal with last night. I was a little disappointed with that. Very slick as the night went on, and I noticed he felt like it didn't look like Moreno really wanted to open up and go at top speed, because he didn't trust the footing, and not many people did as the night went on. That's frustrating. But once he gets comfortable with the players around him, he will start to deliver on that. That might not be till next year. That's where you're at. But I think he gives you something different. I honestly think in a long-term situation, he is an 8. Now, this team could play with 2 8s and a 6. And he's going to be from a little bit deeper position, because I think it's going to be down to Jurgen Damm on the right side, Barco or whoever a left winger is on the left, and Joseph up top, with support from those 2 central midfielders, and Moreno will be one of them. I think that gets the best out of him. But we'll see. But it's hard to expect it right now. The work's been there. The work rate has been there. The effort has been there from him, but he's not sharp. He's played what now? 100 minutes, a little over 100 minutes in 2 games since the beginning of March.
Yeah.
No, he's changed. He's moved to another country. Like, it takes a little bit of time.
We are caught up on Twitter round 2.
All right, so on the Twitch pitch, Monteflo on Adams thinks he's more of an 8. He's got the fitness, decent enough technique, actively pressed a lot last night. That's been one of the key elements from him is his aggressiveness. Yeah, I can buy that, and he's a different kind of 8. And if you're going to play in a way that you have essentially a 6 and 2 8s, he can factor into that because you're going to need a more defensive 8 at times. He's a more defensive 8 than Moreno would be, than Heineman would be. He can play as a 6 in a spot situation as you need. He's a versatile central midfielder, and again, he's cap friendly. So I think Mo Adams has played his way into a spot here next year. Matt Wagner still thinks Atlanta goes after Jonathan Gonzalez. If the prices that were out there before were accurate, I think they're too high. I don't think he's proven enough for that level of expenditure. I worry about that. If they can get him on a better deal, yeah. And it sounds like there were at least conversations. I don't know if it was all overplayed for Gonzalez just trying to find a way out. It sounds like there was at least conversations there. So do they revisit? I'm sure they do. But the numbers that were reported were, I think it was 9 or 10 million in a transfer. It's a little high. I mean, we're talking about a player, and I'll pull up his stats from the Mexican League. He hasn't been a regular a lot. His transfer value, according to Transfer Markt, is 2.75. So, I mean, if we're talking 9 or 10, that's really high there. We're looking at his career numbers at Monterrey, as I click a couple of clicks. 106 matches, 12 in the postseason there. He's got 3 caps for Mexico. I wonder if I can get season by season. Let's see. That's going to be a pain. But the problem that I have that worries me, now this year, of course, there's been the rumors that he would be gone. He's played 62 minutes so far in 2020 in the Apertura. That's not good. The year prior, you're talking about 1,278 minutes, and that's including Copa MX, which he played 9 times there, 655 minutes. In league play, he played 9 times in the Apertura and the Clausura in the 1920 season. He played just under 400 minutes there. He did play in the Club World Cup. He played 3 times in the postseason for 47 minutes. He's really fallen out of favor there in the last year. That you need to have some questions answered as to why. That doesn't mean no, you don't go for him, but you need to know why. The year prior, he played 22 league matches over the Apertura and the Clausura, 1,500 plus minutes. He played 6 times in CONCACAF Champions League that year prior, 3 times in the Copa, 1 time in the postseason. So he played more the year before it really fell off. Why is that? Is it just because of the managerial change from Alonso to Turco Mohamed? If that's it, okay, then go get him, but not for $10 million. That feels too high. If it's in that, if he's 2.75 here on Transfer Markt, and again, it's a guess. If we're talking 5, okay, I think that's worth talking about. Maybe you can structure that. I don't know if you want Jonathan Gonzalez as a designated player. I think that's what it comes down to. If you can get him as a TAM player, he's 21 now. He would not be able to come under the U22 initiative for next year. You do have more flexibility with your situation with designated players because of the U22 initiative, but I don't think more than $5 million feels appropriate here. Unless Turco Mohamed has just completely misjudged Jonathan Gonzalez and you decide, you know what, we think he's the player that was playing consistently before. We're going to go for him and expect him to be that. Even that, $10 million feels high. I don't know. We'll see. Burned to Monteflow about Adams. I agree, but we already have Hindman at the 8 since Marcelino Moreno is the 10 now, and with his high salary, they have to play him. None of that midfield is ideal other than Moreno, in Burns' opinion. Again, I think it comes down to depth, and I think Adams is a more effective depth piece because of his price tag. And that does factor in. If you're able to keep him because he's less expensive than Remedi or Lorenowitz even, that's the smart move. I think you need to keep one of them. I don't think you completely throw everybody out in the midfield, but no, I don't think Mo Adams is a starter in this group. That's where I go back to. Let's see. Yes, Monteflow, Figal is still sliding. That is accurate. He's probably still cursing out a referee, too, along with Gonzalo Higuain.
Yes.
Uncle says, I honestly feel this season will only be remembered by the results, but yes, Lennon has been great, as has Gallagher. No, I'm not saying it gets remembered solely for those. I'm just saying in general, I remember the hard times with teams that I care about alongside the good times. They make the good times more meaningful, in my opinion, because you remember the times that, like Brooks Lennon's running up and down the wing, playing every minute, in a month's time where he played 8 games, and he puts in a great cross, and you get a late result. I remember that stuff, and then what always comes in my mind is when it does get good, you hope that player who put in all the work when it was a struggle is there to savor it. You hope that they're part of it. Doesn't always happen that way. But you hope that they get the reward for what they put in during the hard times, where I think it's harder to put in the work. But no, it will absolutely be remembered by the results. There's no denying that. I don't know. I guess it's just the mentality that if the results aren't great, and great is winning trophies, if you're not winning trophies, that everybody sucks. I don't think that's the case. I think it's harder to win trophies than people give it credit for. KFC says Omar Gonzalez has been awarded a second yellow, so red by me retroactively for taking out Jake, and I feel good about that. KFC's got the cards on the Twitch pitch, so okay, go for it. It could have been a second yellow if that had been called. It was borderline. I mean, the fact they didn't call it shows, probably what they felt about it. I think he made contact with him. I guess, and this is guessing, I guess the explanation is that Mulroney had lost possession and ran into Omar Gonzalez. I think Mulroney is playing it past them at his speed and trying to get past. And yes, there's contact. And did Mulroney look for it? Potentially. That doesn't take away from the fact there's contact and it denies Mulroney the opportunity to get on the end of it. I think it's a foul. Yes. Yellow would have been iffy, but I think it's a foul. Monteflow says Joseph would have scored that header last night from Kubo. Joseph will also have the ability to run in behind a bit more with Moreno and Hindman. And that's a really good point because that opens up more space. Joseph's presence opens up more space for others. Kubo Torres doesn't get that same respect, that gravity that Jarrett talks about a lot. Joseph is going to pull defenders to him and create space for others. His movement does even more of that. You don't get the same from Kubo or from John or from Gallagher. So it's easier to defend Atlanta without a Joseph Martinez in there. And it's something I've been getting back to, and I mentioned it last night on the Southern Fried Soccer podcast with Doug. You don't scare teams with your attack right now. Teams talked about it in the MLS's back tournament. They have to respect, at that time they had to respect Pitti, they had to respect Barco. They have to respect some of the talent that Atlanta has. But they're not afraid like they were with Joseph. They're not afraid like when this team was scoring goals for fun. When they are, it opens up more opportunities for others, for a Moreno, for a Hindman. I think that's one reason you saw Hindman play so well early in the season. There was more space for him to work in. When teams can play you straight up, it's harder. You still have to find a way to be successful, but it's harder. Joseph will change the way this team looks from an attacking perspective, even outside of scoring the goals. I 100% agree. Wagner says he thinks we get a 10 and a 6 in the offseason. It's possible. It is possible. I don't know if you make everything work in that way to get both, but it is possible. I do think Moreno's more of an 8 than a 10, and you might not have a true 10, and that's okay. You can play through, as we've seen a lot of teams do, you can play through your winger as your playmaker. A lot of teams don't really have a playmaker, and that's fine too. It just gets spread around. So If Moreno is the de facto 10 because he's there and you're expecting him to push forward a little more than a traditional 8, that's fine. I just think his player personality is more of an 8. It's getting into semantics, though. Mazzano says, did the stadium and pitch look dark to anyone last night? Beyond the play on the field, it just looked a bit dim. Maybe a little bit. I guess it's just lighting, and it's a stadium that I'm not used to seeing games from.
Yeah, kind of looked a little dark to me too, but I'm not used to seeing night games at UConn, whether it's for UConn football or for anybody else.
I've seen the national team play there at night a couple of times, and maybe it's just a little dark, just the way the lighting is. Just a stadium I'm not used to seeing games in.
Yep.
Monteflo is suggesting Moises Caicedo as the 6. I'd be absolutely fine with that. Starting for Ecuador now as a teenager. Good player and probably not crazy expensive. Monteflo says it's not going to happen. I'm not against it. I mean, you've got the young designated player spot. If you're able to pay... What? I mean, Monteflo, we're talking... I'll go high because I don't want to be in a bidding war. Let's say $8 million.
Yeah.
You think you get him for $8 million? I think so. And I would be tempted on that one. He's younger than Jonathan Gonzalez. He's already getting some pretty serious experience. He's coming from a little bit better development school. Yeah, if it's paying $8 million for one or the other, and I get Caicedo as a young designated player, and he's got more resale value, I'm paying that for Moises Caicedo. I actually like that idea. Shiva, if we have to mention anyone having a disappointing season, it has to be Miami, right? Yeah, I mean, man, it feels like that's what's so crazy about the way I think this league gets talked about, and it's one of the most frustrating things for me. You know, everybody was all about Miami all off season. All season, it's just been Miami's so great. Miami's doing this. They're doing that. Look at what they're doing. Look at this front office. It's all amazing. It's all great. Is it? I mean, is it really? Did you see the meltdown on the weekend when they lost to Montreal? That didn't look so great. Have you seen some of the results from them? It hasn't looked so great. Have you seen them having to go and get players in midseason because the initial moves didn't work? That's not so great. Nashville's a better team. I thought that would be the case from the very beginning, that Nashville would be more effective this season than Miami. They have. They've built in the right way. We'll see with Yonder Cuddies how good they're going to be up top. If they get that element, then we're talking very differently about Nashville, but they've had the better inaugural year. Miami has the potential to change it very quickly because they can spend, and they have no problem doing that, and they've added talent. I don't think teams built on mid-30s European legends are going to be successful in MLS going forward. And that's who Miami is. They're built on Matuidi and Higuain. They're not built on Pizarro. They're not built on Carranza, on Pellegrini. They're built on Matuidi and Higuain taking them as far as they can. And they're built on Leandro Gonzalez Perez being that player in the back that they need. Those are 3 fiery personalities that I have a bad feeling when things go south are destructive and not elevating that group. We'll have to see how it plays out, but that's what it looked like on Saturday at Red Bull Arena against Montreal. So, yeah, Miami's been a big disappointment, in my opinion. I agree with you, Shiva. Let's see. Monteflo talking about Moises Caicedo getting substantially more interest from Europe now than at the beginning of the year, and he was rumored to Italy and Holland in January. That's why you got to come in and spend the money now. Go get Moises Caicedo. I'm in. I'm totally in. Matt Wagner, when do you think we'll hear more about the new manager? I'm thinking the offseason now, since we haven't heard anything by now. Yeah, I'm thinking the offseason. I think that was probably the intention all the way through. I think it's the right way to do it. You know, I don't think a new manager would have been able to come in quickly. I mean, we're seeing what the Red Bull situation is already. They announce a manager, and he can't get here for a month after they announce him. Yeah. Okay. You know, luckily for their sakes and for Bradley Carnell's sake, they're still getting results, and that's a credit to Carnell. I mean, and a lot of times in that situation, it's like, oh, well, I don't really care about the substitute teacher here. I'm waiting for the new guy. So that's been good. I worried that would not be the case, but Stephen Glass can't really build anything effectively if you're going to go bring somebody in a couple weeks later. And yeah, I think he needed to rebuild some things. I think it makes it easier for whoever comes in, because what Steven's been able to do with this group, in my opinion, is get back to the basics. Get back to being more aggressive. Get back to rebuilding the spirit of the group. Clearing the decks for the new manager to come in and not have to deal with the baggage that it sounded like there was after the Frank de Boer time. Rightly or wrongly, it sounds like there were things that needed to be cleaned up. I think Stephen Glass has done that. That was the job he had. Get as much as you can in terms of results, get this team back to where it needs to be, and make it easier for the next hire to come in and do their job fresh. And I think that has been accomplished. Even if you don't make the playoffs, I think that has been accomplished. And now you move forward. So I think we'll hear about that in the offseason, Matt. I'm with you. Anything else on Twitter?
Yes.
Okay, what do we got?
Tafka says, when you look back, Atlanta has yet to have a dull transfer year. Pretty crazy for an MLS club. 2017, signing Tata and Almiron. 2018, signing a Barco. 2018 and 19, Tata leaves. FDB, the sale of Miggy for a record, the signing of PT. 2020, the sacking of FDB, signing Moreno and Lopez. No club entertained you like that in this league.
Yeah, it's something that Glenn Davis in Houston has said to me many times, is he is envious because there's always something to talk about. They don't have that in Houston. They don't have that in a lot of cities around the league. There is always something going on because Atlanta is a club that gets in a lot of these conversations with teams from South America, with players from South America. It's been a very well-respected club. So, yeah, and just the nature of the business. Look, it's something that I think is an important element here. If you sell players on, you increase your salary cap size. That's important. That gives you more to work with. That allows you to have a better team. So you have to bring players in. You have to sell players on for profits to be able to bring that allocation money in. Atlanta's done a good job with that, not just with a Miguel Almiron, but even the moves like Carlos Carmona, which gave you allocation money. The moves with Nagbe and Gressel giving you a bunch of allocation money. That's increasing your salary cap. So they've done a good job with that. I think this offseason, I don't know how much is going to be outgoing. There are a lot of decisions to make. And I think it's shaping what you have left and where you feel like you need to go shopping. I think the 6 is probably the most identifiable situation you need to go shopping. There's questions about the 10. There's questions about the left wing. There's questions about Barco long term. There's other questions to answer. But I feel like that central midfield, if you get it where you want it at the end of the window going into next season, you're right back to where you were as a cup contender, which is where you want to be every year. Burned says, this Gonzalez debate shows the silliness of these MLS layers, DP, TAM, etc. We can't pay the right price for Gonzalez because that's not enough to spend on a DP slot, but it's too much for TAM. It's such an inefficient way to spend money on a soccer roster. Keeps the league back. Straight cap, please. I don't disagree with you. It's just not happening right now. You could spend $3 to $5 million. I think the thing that I maybe didn't make clear, I don't think, regardless of the cap rules, you're spending $8 to $10 million for Jonathan Gonzalez. I don't think that's a smart spend of money. I would rather spend that if that means you have to spend 8 or 10 to get Caicedo ahead of Dutch clubs or Italian clubs. Do that. He's 3 years younger. I think he's got more upside. Do that. It's more about not the MLS rules in terms of the money, but in terms of Gonzalez was talked about at 9 to 10 million, and that feels too high to me. If you decide he's the right guy and you can get him for 5 and he counts as a designated player, then go get him. That's fine. I don't care. And I don't think the team really should worry about that. I don't think they should worry about we have to spend X amount over the cap to be a real designated player to be worth our time. No, I think you're past that now. It's all about finding the right fit. And if he's the one, just don't spend 8 to 10 million for him because it's too much. I'd rather see that spent differently. So I'm with you, Burned, in general, because I agree. I think it does hold the league back in ways that was not the intention. The cap should go up, period. The ability to bring players in, the mechanisms for it should be easier for all of us to follow, period. It hasn't happened with this CBA. I hope it can happen with the next CBA. I think everybody would win that way, the owners, the teams, and the players, in terms of getting more money. It would put more of an onus on directors of football, general managers, to spend that money effectively. I think MLS has some of these rules to make them spend money in certain ways, because we've seen some really poor decisions made over the years. I think that's why TAM was structured the way it was, for example. So we'll see if that changes. But Jonathan Gonzalez, it's more about the 9 to 10 price range that feels high to me. I think there's better options for that price range. But if he's a designated player at 3 to 5 and he is at 9 to 10, just get him at the right price. I think that's the biggest thing for me. J-Dub says Colorado's had the most disappointing season because they haven't had one. They haven't had one in a while. That's a problem. And still, no real explanation as to what happened with their outbreak. That's not good. Mirix says, and I hope I'm guessing that is pronounced right, Myrys 20. I'm going Mirix 20.
Myrix?
You could. Miami's had so much hope, and then they never played win, which baffled me because that was the position they were lacking. Their lineups made no sense. Yeah, their lineups have been weird. That's a good point. I thought Lee Win would get more time. Diego Alonso wants central midfielders that are two-way players. All that's good. He's made exceptions for Pizarro to not be that two-way player as much. I don't know if Rodolfo Pizarro has really lived up to it just yet. I think he might be better as a wide player where he's in a more free role, especially for the way Alonso wants to play, which then means you need three central midfielders like Trapp, Ulloa, and Matuidi. All right. But you're then deciding between you're going to play Pizarro over Pellegrini, who you invested in. This is where it goes back to the strategy for Miami. It felt piecemeal in the way they built that team. It didn't feel like there was a strategy because you go out and you spend on Matias Pellegrini and Julian Carranza, but then you don't build a roster to where you have to play them. You then replace them, and they don't play a whole ton this year. You go out and get Lewis Morgan, which was a great acquisition. You go get Pizarro, and you kind of shoehorn him in. Then when Matuidi and Higuain become available, you go pounce on them when you've already got two holding midfielders in Trapp and Ulloa. So then you're having to figure that out. Higuain takes time away from Carranza, who was pretty good. Breck Shea's come in one time. That was a good acquisition, but that still complicates things more. Your defense has been a mess at times this year. Luis Robles is not going to be effective for a whole lot longer when he comes back from this injury. I don't really know if they've created something that's sustainable because, I mean, you can't expect Matuidi, Higuain, Robles to carry you for very long. So then what? Is it just go get the next exciting former World Cup final player? I guess. I don't know. I had hope for them when they were more of a concept. I had hope for them when they went and got Pellegrini and Carranza because I thought those were two players who could turn into something. I started to lose hope as that roster came together. I lost hope when they didn't have a number 9 for a long time, and they didn't just settle on Carranza playing it and take your lumps. You get Matuidi on a TAM deal, that's great. Is it going to transform who you are? It hasn't really yet. So, I don't know. Nashville's been the better team, and Nashville hasn't gotten enough credit. And Miami hasn't gotten enough criticism, I think, to be fair, like some other teams in the league that are favorites of the folks, like LAFC, who, again, roster construction, they traded Walker Zimmerman and didn't replace him for most of the season. That doesn't make any sense. I don't know. Burned about the... Let me see. So Burned and Modiflow are going back and forth about roster construction and stuff, so it might be hard to bring it all the way back in. Straight cap is what Burned is saying in terms of a salary cap. Just go straight. Don't have TAM. Don't have designated players. Don't have any of that. Just set a number, and that's it. Which I'm not against. Best GMs will have the best team. That's true. Burns says, first thing I do is replace the entire competition committee with people who have actual ambition to grow the league. I do think it's important to have some of the smaller teams' voices in there. I'd like some of the different ambitions. So if I could build a group that would give me, I think, the best insight for where this league could go. And I'm not going to put people, I'm just talking teams and the way they function. So I would want Atlanta. I would want Philadelphia. I would want Dallas. And Dallas would give you a pushback on spending because you don't want everybody to just say spend $100 million because there's teams who can't do that. So Dallas would be a counterweight to some of that. Okay, I'm fine with that. You want a counterweight. I don't want Dallas to control it. What?
Nashville?
No, I don't know. Why? Why?
Just because of how they build a first-year club. That's what I'm looking at.
That's not... No, we're talking two different things, John. They've built a good first-year club because they built a smart team for their manager, Gary Smith. We don't know what they've done yet. I'm not putting Nashville or Miami on there because they don't know how to build a league yet. They've done one team. I want Philadelphia because of what they've done on the academy and what they've shown there. I want Dallas because of what they've done on the academy, and both are not big spenders. I want Atlanta. I want LAFC because they're teams that want to spend and have shown you can spend and be effective. I would probably want a Seattle, which is a bigger spender but not a big spender. I would want Portland on there because Merritt Paulson, in general, I think wants this league to grow, but he understands some of the realities of it. So I would tilt it to bigger spenders because I think that's needed now. But I don't want to completely lose the voices of the Dallases and Philadelphias. So I would want them involved as well. So if I have five, it would be Atlanta, LA, Dallas, Philadelphia, and maybe either Seattle or Portland is the tipper, or Toronto as another team that spends big and spends differently. Actually, Toronto would be a good one because they spend in a different way than Atlanta and LAFC. So I'd be fine with that. Monteflow, to be honest, Glass has gotten a lot right in correcting team spirit and defensive issues. Seems like the players are all bought in to fix the problem instead of resigning themselves to mediocrity. Yeah, absolutely. And Shiva asked, what do you mean by Glassy had to clean things up and get the team to where they needed to be? Just what I said, to be honest, Shiva. I mean, it's just all the comments that came out of Frank DeBoer leaving. It was announced as a mutual decision. I do not remember one player wishing him well publicly. That says a lot. Felipe Cardenas' article at The Athletic, talking about all the different things that were going on behind the scenes with Frank, the interview with Frank. I think it's obvious to see that something wasn't right. The Columbus game shows you that something wasn't right. The chirping last year. That's all stuff that is not part of the club right now. You're not getting that with Stephen Glass. I think the players are playing hard for him. I think he's gotten them back to, and I'm talking about it even more from on the field, because they became a less aggressive team as time went on with Frank. They were not pressuring after losing possession, which was an element that I think was needed to make the possession work. I think Stephen Glass has got the group back to where they need to be an Atlanta United club. They need to be better. They need to be healthy. They need to be more dangerous going forward. But the foundational elements of organization, of work, of pressuring opponents, of making life difficult for the opponents, all those things are back to where they needed to be. I don't think they were there in that Columbus game that was a must-win at MLS's back. And that was probably where it felt like the wheels came off. That's what I think Stephen Glass has done. This team doesn't look like many other bad teams in the league, in my opinion. And there's a reason for that, because I don't think they're a bad team at heart. LA Galaxy look like a team that don't really care about their manager. There's some others that have looked like that. DC didn't look like they really cared about Ben Olsen. I think Ben Olsen not being there maybe has been a shock to their system. Probably just time, as Ben said. They needed a different voice. So They looked better since he left, but they looked like they didn't really care that he was there. I don't think that's the case with this team right now. I don't get that feeling, and I'm trying not to have blinders on when I look at it that way. I don't get that feeling. Are they good enough right now? No. But are they playing hard and working hard? Yes. They didn't play hard and work hard in that first 45 against Columbus. They did when desperation kicked in at halftime. They did not in the first 45. I have not seen this team look like that since Stephen Glass took over. And that was one of the things that I think needed to change. Jason Nix, we're not doing 3 hours. We're not even getting close to 3 hours.
No.
Not happening.
Because we've only got one more thing on Twitter and some news between Philadelphia and Montreal.
Okay, what do we have?
The Union acquired an international slot from Montreal for $50,000 in GAM. That opens up the international spot to use for Corey Burke's return.
Well, Lottie frickin' da!
That's what international slot trades get.
Yep. And then the Falcoholic, Mr. Green, asks, is there anything new on the possible CCL restart? If restarted safely, do you think it would be a good thing in terms of team chemistry, regardless of the result?
Yeah, I think it'd be a great thing, actually. The rumor is that it would be the third week in December, and they would play the second legs at a neutral site. They would play the LAFC series. It hadn't started, and as a one game at a neutral site. Semis and final would be at a neutral site, one game, not 2 games. If Atlanta doesn't make the playoffs and their season ends on November 8th, and they are going to play Club America in a competitive match the third week of December, the week after MLS Cup, I'm assuming, that's a whole nother month you get to train. That's massive. Massive. Now, you're going to have to make some decisions on, do guys need to go ahead and be shut down for the offseason at that point? Do you want to go ahead and rule some people out of that game? You're down 3-0. I mean, if you win it, then you're going into a semifinal and a final situation in a one game, and who knows? You could have Joseph Martinez back for those games because the injury list is for MLS competition. You're going to have to assess it, but at a minimum, you get another, and assuming you don't make the playoffs, you get another month of training with this group. Now, this is where you haven't made your managerial hire. You'd love to be in a position to do that. You haven't been able to do that yet. I think it's harder than people have given it credit for, because if it's not the move that people want, then people will say you did it too fast. But it would help build the chemistry with this group as a whole. It would help build that relationship with Moreno and the players around him. It could be huge. It could be huge. I love the idea because of the extra training time it gives Atlanta United.
No, right there with you. And, you know, when you have those kinds of opportunities, definitely do not turn those things down if they're presented to you to lead out of 2020 and get you into 2021.
Yeah. Burns says, of course, Gonzalez is not worth 10. I'm sure Rayados would gladly take 4 since he doesn't start for them. I think they were the ones who were holding on to the 9 or 10 price range. And this is all the reporting from 2DayNA, which take with a little bit of a grain of salt. So we'll see. Maybe that number comes down after you didn't make the deal here. I don't know. Let me see if they have his contract length or if they know it or if they are guessing at it. I don't know when he's out of contract. They say June 30, 22 on Transfer Markt. So you're getting into that time. If Monterrey is not going to keep him, they would need to sell him really by the summer of 21 at the latest. So they're going to get more desperate for it. Maybe they would take 4 now. But the reporting was that they were the ones pushing for that higher number, and it sounded like Atlanta balked on that higher number. Again, it's reporting from 2DayNA, but we'll see. Maybe those numbers have changed. I'm not grumbling for 30 minutes, Mizzano. We're only 10 minutes over right now. I'm not grumbling a whole lot longer about going a full third hour. Not doing it.
No.
Burns says, I would say, and it pains me, but Orlando has maybe the best midfield in the league. Maybe Toronto is even with them, but older. Toronto's the best midfield in the league for me when they're fully healthy, with Bradley, Osorio, Delgado, and Pozuelo, depending on how you want to shape it, because you've got some flexibility there. I like Philadelphia's midfield, too, as currently constructed, with their diamond, with Jose Martinez, Bedoya, Montero, and Aronson. I like that group a lot. Orlando's is good. I don't put it quite that high. Trying to think where I would rank it. Top 5, I think, is fair. Urso, Rosell, Perea is a good one. We'll see if they keep Perea on a long term. Pereira is really good, and I like him. I don't know what the best fit is behind him. I don't know if it's Urso and Perea, if it's Uri Rosell, who's more of that possession number 6, or if you want the combativeness of a Perea and a junior Urso. It's good. And you do have some flexibility. I'll take Toronto and Philadelphia's midfields ahead of Orlando, though.
Yeah.
KFC, the mate was a mighty brew at hand while John's muffin was stale. The Five Stripe fans set sail that day for a 3-hour show. Are you still eating stale muffins?
No. Patty got a new round, so it's and she apologized because it was a combination box of blueberry and banana nut.
Why would you apologize about that?
Because she didn't know that the 2 banana nuts were in the group of 4. She thought.
Why are you apologizing about banana nuts?
She only saw the blueberry muffins and thought it was a full box of blueberry muffins.
Why would you apologize about banana nut muffins? Those are glorious. There's no need to apologize about banana nut muffins.
Okay, well then tell Patty that the next time you see her.
Well, you're the one who she felt like she needed to apologize to.
Because she just would always get the 4-pack of blueberry muffins. That's why.
Do you have a problem with banana nut muffins?
No, I do not. I do not eat them on a regular basis, but since they are in this current box, I am eating them and I'm not repulsed.
So you do have a problem with banana nut muffins?
No, I do not. No, you're taking my comment.
You said you're not repulsed.
You're taking my comment to the extreme.
Okay.
I don't. Banana nut muffins are not something I'm going to sit there and go, oh, I'm going to get banana nut muffins. No, I'm a blueberry guy. And so.
Why am I not surprised?
So, yeah, just the notion of going, it's like, oh, there's banana nut muffins there. And, the biggest issue I have with banana nut muffins is fishing things out between my teeth and having to find dental floss. But no, I don't have an issue with banana nut muffins.
Yeah, pretty much. Seattle and Portland, I think midfields are also being put into this conversation from Burned. And I'd agree with that. I got to think about that now. You might need to remind me earlier in the show. We need to do this will be an off-season project, I think, a position group power ranking list for MLS. Maybe we do it at the end of the season. And maybe that's an international break in November topic. At the end of the season, going into the next window for teams, position group power rankings. Defense, midfield, attack. I think Bernd was actually talking about the competition committee. Either one. We'll get into it. We're definitely not going 4 hours, Uncle. I'll tell you that much. That's for sure. I can already feel my voice going. John would fall over at that point.
Well, that and I'd have to give you the point and then leave because I catch up with Brad Harbor from Crisp for the Football Fridays podcast at the top of the next hour.
Oh, wow. Okay, finishing up quickly. Bernd. No, you're going to stop asking questions, Bernd. I think the mutual decision worked out a lot better for FDB than for Atlanta United if we miss the playoffs. Yeah, better attitude, but this is sports and results matter. Sorry. I don't know if Frank was getting the results either, though. That's the thing, is I don't think the results were getting better than they are now. I think they could have been worse, to be honest, because I think if the vibe that has been discussed after the fact, and I think we got glimpses of during the fact, was as bad as it was coming out of the Orlando tournament, I don't think it would have gotten better. Now, maybe it could have with the training time ahead of the restart. Maybe. No way to know that. But I don't think the pathway was good for the results to be better at that time. I think the results are better than they would have been. I do. We'll see. Monteflo, stop conspiring. Totally stop conspiring. All of you stop conspiring.
Well, we're back tonight at 7 anyway.
It's true. We are back at 7. We have soccer over there at 7 o'clock. It will be an hour of review because there's lots of things to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
VAR in England, offside in England, horror tackles in England, Barcelona and Real Madrid both losing.
Serie A table.
Yes, the Serie A table. The two teams that are perfect in major European leagues are Aston Villa and AC Milan. So we have a lot to review, and that will be hour number 1. We have a lot to preview, and that is hour number 2, because we have Champions League getting underway this week. We have Europa League getting underway this week. We have the final match day of the group stages of Copa Libertadores this week, starting tomorrow. Wow. We've got a ton to preview, so it will be very strict 7 to 8 review, 8 to 9 preview. There probably won't even be time for Mondays with Bentner. It's going to be that busy. I'm sure Bentner's talked about other crazy things and stuff. We will talk about Sergio Aguero, absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't care if he's a nice guy. That's just no. But I also don't care that it's a female assistant referee as opposed to a male assistant referee. He shouldn't be touching any assistant referee, period. Nope. It doesn't make it worse that it's a female assistant referee, because then you're separating her from her profession, and I don't think that's the way to go. It's bad no matter who it is. If the fact that she's a female assistant referee gets a spotlight on it more, I don't know if that's good or bad. It needs to be talked about, period, because he shouldn't be touching any referee. I'm not a fan of I'm a big fan of Pep Guardiola. I'm not a fan of how he handled this. I don't care if he's the nicest guy. He shouldn't be touching referees, period.
Nope.
But we'll get into that more. We'll get into all these different things. Yes, if we get a sponsor for the third hour, we will do a third hour, Mazzano. That's a good point. You go find me a sponsor, we will do a 3-hour show.
Exactly.
Totally agree. Jessica Charman sends her regards. We'll get it with her sometime later this week. She had some stuff she couldn't get out of today, so we'll get her thoughts on the weekend, and probably we'll get her thoughts on what's coming up for Atlanta United with the biggest week of 2020 starting on Saturday. We'll get into all that and more as we go this week. But soccer over there tonight, 7 o'clock. Review first hour, preview second hour. Got a lot of Copa Libertadores, Mataflo, to get ready for. I need your predictions.
Yeah, we need his trademarked prediction.
Yep. There's a lot of groups that are going to come down to the wire. There's some groups that are completely up for grabs, so it's going to be fun. And then we'll preview the rest of it with the Champions League. So we'll be back at 7. Y'all have a good afternoon, and mucha plata to you.
Mucha plata to you.